Next, we'd like to move to the Board of Selectmen, and we are going to start with nominations for the office of First Selectman. And for the purposes of placing the name of Joseph Mazza in nomination, I would like to invite Mary Beeman to the podium.
Good evening. Most of the people in this room have known my friend Joe Mazza for 10, 15, even 20 years. They know how dedicated he is to the town of Guilford. I had heard his name during most of my adult life here in Guilford. His name was one I associated with the Republican Party and town governance, but I had yet to meet him. Now, I've only really known Joe for 2 years. You might think I have no business at this podium speaking on his behalf. But it doesn't take long to figure out that Joe is the kind of man you will admire for his dedication. It doesn't take long to realize that you respect his ideals and values. It doesn't take long to trust the word of Joe Mazza. It doesn't take long to realize that you can count on him for the duration of your friendship, and that you can count on that friendship to last a long time. Joe and I worked hard campaigning together in 2007. I was a rookie. I'd never run for public office till that summer. We campaigned at the transfer station on Saturdays and spent hours going door to door. By the end of that campaign, I knew Joe very well. At that time, Joe had successfully been elected 6 times over the course of 14 years for 3 terms each on the Board of Finance and then the Board of Selectmen. This man knew what he was doing, and I was going to pay attention. I quickly gathered that Joe had his finger on the pulse of Guilford. He has the best interest of the town and its citizens always in the forefront of thought. Joe and his wife Jean moved to town in 1987, where he has based his accounting and tax practice. They have 5 sons between them, and shortly after that, he joined the Guilford Republican Town Committee. The RTC couldn't have known then how much Joe would contribute to its mission. Throughout his career, he has held financial and management positions in a variety of companies, large and small, both domestic and international, priming him for the position of leadership in the town of Guilford. During his tenure on the Board of Finance, he was the first chairman of the Senior Tax Relief Commission, writing the ordinance that enacted the Guilford Tax Relief Program. Never before had Guilford seniors had such promise to stay in their homes into their golden years. Joe worked hard to make that happen. While serving as a selectman, he initiated the new Public Works Commission to oversee its $2 million budget. Joe's generous spirit of volunteerism blossomed as the treasurer and member of the board of directors of the Rotary Club of Guilford. He has shown us all that he is a leader with integrity, making the most of the varied positions he has held, both elected and volunteer. I trust that this man, Joe Mazza, will lead Guilford into a new era of fiscal responsibility. I know that this man, Joe Mazza, will keep the best interest of its citizens in mind when transacting the business of the town of Guilford. I am confident that in November, this man, Joe Mazza, will be elected to a 4-year term as the first selectman of Guilford. I have the distinct honor to nominate Joseph S. Mazza for the position of first selectman of the town of Guilford.
Thank you, Mary. I'd next like to invite Jean Bishop to the podium for the purposes of a nomination.
Well, that's a hard act to follow. But, well, thank you, Mr. Chairman and the assembled people here. I'm delighted to have the opportunity to second the nomination of Joe Mazza. Joe has served the town of Guilford for 16 years, 10 on the Board of Finance and 6 on the Board of Selectmen. I have had the privilege of working with him for 10 of those years during my tenure as selectman. From my first days on the Board of Selectmen, I recognized the importance of working together with the Board of Finance, and I was very aware of the role that Joe played on that board. It was Joe that spearheaded the need for tax relief for our senior citizens and served as chairman of that committee when they created our tax relief program. I have observed firsthand his commitment to bringing tax relief to these citizens and making it possible for them to remain in their homes. During my 10 years on the Board of Selectmen, 6 of the years we had a Republican majority, and Joe had a strong influence in our ability to keep our budgets balanced and not let our spending to go unchecked, first while on the boards of finance and then as selectman. Since then, he has worked hard as a minority on the Board of Selectmen to promote fiscal restraint. Joe has also been a member of the Guilford Rotary Club and served as treasurer for 3 years and as ticket chairman of the Lobster Fest since 1902, selling close to 1,500 tickets each year. That's not an easy job either. In all the time I have served with Joe, I have never known him to do a job halfway. Excuse me. He takes the time to study the issues, and not until he is comfortable with the position will he make a decision. He always puts his whole effort into any job that he undertakes, and in his own quiet way makes things happen. To sum it up, I have no reservation whatsoever to endorse the nomination of Joe Mazza for First Selectman for the town of Guilford.
Thank you, Gene. I would next like to invite, for the purposes of nomination, Mr. Robert Hartman.
Thanks, Jim, and Republicans. It gives me a great deal of pleasure to second the nomination of Joe Mazza for the office of First Selectman for the town of Guilford. I've had the distinct pleasure of working very closely with Joe for over several years. On the Board of Finance, where Joe has been an outstanding member for 10 years, Joe always worked for the towns to keep the town's taxes down while providing the services which the people have needed by the people of the town. Joe does not vote on anything he does not completely understand. He will ask the questions until he has a complete understanding of the situation before he votes. Joe does not vote for anything he doesn't understand. And when he does vote, he votes for the needs of the people and their pocketbooks, and keeping them in mind. As was said before, Joe was the force behind the adoption of Guilford's elderly tax relief program. He was also the first chairman of the program, which is regarded around the state as the finest program in the state. He was also instrumental in increasing veterans' benefits for Guilford residents. For the past 3 terms, Joe has served on the Board of Selectmen. Following his experience on the Board of Finance, Joe continues to be concerned about the finances of the town. He has gained a reputation as the voice of reason. Joe will make an excellent First Selectman for the town of Guilford. Guilford does not need a former banker to run this town. You know what the big bankers did to the country. Let's not let them do that to Guilford. Joe knows how to keep the books, and he knows what happens on both sides of the ledger. Joe will bring Guilford back to financial soundness. Please join me in nominating for the next Selectman, First Selectman of Guilford, Joe Mazza.
Thank you, Bob. Are there any other nominations for the office of First Selectman? Hearing none, I move nominations be closed. Second? Second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries unanimously. Joe Mazza is our First Selectman candidate.